How to think like someone nobody can control. Think about the last time someone tried to pressure you into a decision through guilt, through urgency, through some version of everyone else already agreed, and for a moment, you actually felt yourself starting to bend, even though nothing about your own judgment had changed. That moment is worth paying attention to, because it reveals something most people never examine directly. Being controlled rarely looks like force. It looks like pressure dressed up as reason, urgency, or connection, and most people give in to it so smoothly they don't even register it as control. They just feel like they made a decision. Here's what most people never realize. The people who seem impossible to control aren't smarter, tougher, or more strong-willed in some abstract sense. They've simply built a different relationship with their own thinking, one where their conclusions come from inside, not from whoever spoke last, loudest, or most urgently. This connects to something psychologists call locus of control, the degree to which someone believes their decisions originate from their own reasoning versus external circumstances. People with a strong internal locus of control aren't immune to influence entirely. Nobody is. But they process outside pressure differently. When someone pushes them, urgency, guilt, flattery, disapproval, they experience it as information to consider, not as a command that requires immediate compliance. That distinction sounds small. It changes almost everything. And it gets even more interesting than that, because most manipulation, most social pressure, doesn't actually rely on strong arguments. It relies on speed. Reciprocity, urgency, social proof, all of it works best when there's no time to think, when the pressure to respond outweighs the space to evaluate. This is where almost everyone gets caught, not because their reasoning is bad, but because they never get the chance to use it. The decision gets made in the gap before thought even arrives. People who can't be controlled have simply learned to protect that gap. Not through willpower, exactly, but through a specific mental habit almost nobody is taught directly. The first habit is treating urgency as a warning sign, not a reason to move faster. Most pressure tactics rely on manufactured urgency, the sense that if you don't decide right now, something will be lost. This taps into psychological reactance in reverse, using the fear of losing an option to override careful thought. People who think independently have trained themselves to notice this specific feeling, the tightening, the rush, and treat it as a signal to slow down deliberately rather than speed up. Real opportunities can usually survive a pause. Manufactured pressure rarely can. The second habit is separating disagreement from disapproval. Many people avoid holding their own position simply because disagreement feels, physically, almost identical to rejection. This connects to social validation, the deep human need to be accepted by the group. But people who think independently have done the internal work of decoupling those two things. They can hold a view that makes someone unhappy without experiencing that unhappiness as evidence they've done something wrong. This isn't coldness. It's simply understanding that being disagreed with and being disliked are not the same event, even though they often arrive together. The third habit, and the hardest to build, is noticing when a thought originated from them, or from someone else's voice repeating in their head. This might be the most overlooked skill in independent thinking. Over time, especially around persuasive or dominant personalities, it becomes easy to absorb someone else's opinion so completely that it starts to feel like your own. This connects to something called social contagion, the way beliefs, moods, and even conclusions spread between people almost invisibly, especially in close relationships or hierarchies. People who can't be controlled routinely ask themselves a quiet, almost uncomfortable question. Do I actually believe this, or did I just hear it enough times that it started to feel true? There's a deeper psychological reason this independence is so rare, and it connects back to cognitive load. Thinking for yourself, genuinely, is exhausting. It requires holding uncertainty, tolerating disagreement, resisting social pressure, and sitting with the discomfort of not having outside confirmation. Letting someone else decide or simply going along with the loudest voice in the room is cognitively cheaper. Most people aren't controlled because they're weak. They're controlled because independent thought has a real mental cost, and very few people are ever taught how to pay it without burning out. This is also where confirmation bias quietly works against people who don't protect their own reasoning. Once an idea enters your mind repeatedly, from a partner, a friend, a boss, a group, your brain starts unconsciously filtering new information to support it, simply because it's already familiar. Independent thinkers aren't immune to this either. What sets them apart is that they periodically stop and ask where a belief actually came from, before defending it as though it was always theirs. None of this means becoming rigid, contrarian, or suspicious of every influence around you. Being unable to be controlled isn't about resisting everyone automatically. It's about making sure that whatever you eventually agree with, you arrived at through your own evaluation, not because you ran out of time, energy, or willingness to hold the line a little longer. The people who seem impossible to manipulate were never fighting off every attempt in real time. They'd simply already done the quieter work, long before the pressure arrived, of knowing which thoughts were actually theirs. True power is rarely about controlling other people. It's about controlling yourself. If you want to keep exploring the psychology behind independent thinking, manipulation, and self-respect, consider subscribing. There's a lot more beneath the surface of how our minds are influenced than most people ever stop to notice.